Welcome to CinePro, where we bring your favorite movies back to life, with quick recaps, hidden details, and everything you missed. At the same time, Deborah and Angel are investigating the same Rodrigo case and reach a neighbor of Rodrigo, who tells them he saw Rodrigo getting into a car with someone and then disappearing. They get the car's number and discover it was impounded at the station at the time the crime took place, which confirms Frank's suspicion that the killer is one of the officers, as he suspected from the beginning. Of course, we know that the one who did this is Dexter, not anyone else. Frank asks Maria and Angel to keep silent until they know who exactly the killer is. Everyone agrees. The next day, we see Dexter standing in front of Rita's house, and it's clear he spent the night there to protect her and her kids from Lila, who seems to have lost her mind and is fixated on Rita and her family and could easily harm them. Rita wakes up, goes down, and finds Dexter outside. She asks him what he's doing there, and Dexter tells her he's just making sure they're okay, then leaves. But before getting in his car, he sees two of Frank's men watching them from a distance, which worries him. But as usual, Dexter tries to ignore what he saw, gets in his car, and was planning to go to the cabin where he killed the man who killed his mother. But when he thinks about it and remembers people are watching him, he decides to change direction and go home instead of drawing more attention. At the same moment, we see that Dokes has left the country and gone to Haiti. There, Dokes meets an old friend and tells him he has some blood samples he wants analyzed, away from the authority. Dokes' goal is to find out if these samples match the serial killer's victims, and if so, he will know the truth that Dexter is the killer. Dokes agrees with his friend to come to him soon with the samples and leaves. Back to Dexter, who goes to the station. When he enters, all the officers are gathered, so he asks why they're all together. He probably knows who the killer is and doesn't need anyone working with him. When Dexter hears this, he starts connecting what they're saying with the surveillance he saw and begins to suspect that Frank has found him out and knows he's the serial killer. When Dexter goes to his office, he finds people from forensics working for Frank, reviewing the cases Dexter worked on recently. Dexter gets even more nervous and feels they really suspect him and that he's been exposed one way or another. So he decides to act quickly and get rid of all the evidence he has at home, including the body he's hiding in the cabin, the body of the man who killed his mother. As Dexter leaves, he sees Lila at the station sitting with Angel and they seem very close. Dexter realizes Lila is trying to provoke him and fears she might say something to Angel about the man who killed his mother. That's why Dexter is currently going with Angel, Lila, and Muska to the casino, so he can keep a very close eye on Lila and understand exactly why she's getting close to Angel. So Dexter sat there watching Lila to make sure she wouldn't talk or do anything suspicious. And indeed, Lila didn't say anything, which made Dexter feel relieved. He then left and went home. When Dexter got home, he went to check the samples from his victims, but was surprised to find they were missing. Of course, Dokes had taken them from the house as we saw before, but Dexter didn't know about Dokes' involvement. He figured Frank was the one who found them, and now Frank might accuse him of being the killer and expose him. But before Dexter could think more about what to do, some federal agents showed up at his house and told him Frank wanted to see him immediately. Dexter was extremely scared. When he got to Frank's office, Frank had a box full of blood samples in front of him. Dexter decided he would confess everything, but before he could say a word, Frank told him those samples were found in Dokes' car, and that Dokes had traveled out of the country. This made Dexter feel much better, like he had escaped a huge disaster. The surprise here was that Frank actually wanted Dexter to analyze the samples himself, and that's why he brought him in. Frank then asked Dexter why Dokes was always following him. Dexter quickly thought and said that Dokes was suspicious of him, and was trying to set him up. This only increased Frank's suspicion of Dokes, and Dexter felt like he'd won this round. Now Frank suspects Dokes is the killer, and that he was just watching Dexter to frame him for the crime. The biggest sign that Frank thinks Dokes is the criminal is that Frank decided to assign a whole team to protect Dexter, including having Dokes kept away from him. This really annoyed Dexter because now he couldn't move freely or do what he wanted. But Dexter decided to deal with the situation his own way until he could find a solution. After Dexter finished working on the samples, he returned home with the team Frank had assigned to him. When they arrived, they told Dexter they would keep a close watch on the place from a distance to protect him. Dexter thanked them, then went inside. As soon as he got in, he grabbed a small bag from the back of the house, snuck out without anyone seeing, and headed to his boat. He went to the cabin where his mother's killer's body was, took the body, and went to dispose of it in the ocean as he always does. But just as he was about to do this, Dokes suddenly appeared out of nowhere, pointed a gun at Dexter, and told him he had discovered his samples and was going to take them to be analyzed to confirm he was the killer. But Dokes's mistake was that he left the samples in his car, which made Frank think Dokes was the killer. Dokes had planned to get the samples back after meeting his friend at the lab, but unfortunately Frank found them first, so now everything was pointing at Dokes. But Dokes shot Dexter in the leg, and despite the injury, Dexter managed to grab him, throw him in the water and choke him until he lost consciousness. After a while, when Dokes woke up, he found himself tied up in the same cabin, surrounded by a lot of drugs, which belonged to Dexter's mother's killer. By the way, that cabin was his, and he always hid the drugs he was dealing there. Anyway, before Dokes could think of anything else, Dexter was standing in front of him. Dokes tried to talk to him and said he wouldn't stay quiet about this, but Dexter left him there and went out to think about what to do with Dokes. After a while, Dexter came back to the cabin after finishing his thoughts, and Dokes was still locked up with nothing changed. This made Dexter feel a little better, knowing he wouldn't act rashly until he decided what to do with him. At the same time, Dexter started analyzing himself and thinking out loud in front of Dokes. Dokes asked him what he planned to do with him. Dexter said he hadn't made a final decision yet, so he would stay there until he figured it out. This made Dokes lose his temper and tell Dexter to either kill him or let him go, but not to leave him like that. Dexter acted as if he didn't hear anything and left without responding, going home through the window as usual so the security wouldn't see him. No one noticed, and Dexter started thinking seriously because he felt Dokes was innocent and didn't deserve to be killed. While he was thinking, Dexter heard a knock at the door. He opened it and found Rita and Ava, so he let them in and it seemed things were starting to get better between them. The next day, Dexter went to work and attended a meeting with Frank and the rest of the team. After the meeting, Dexter asked Frank to remove the security detail because he couldn't live his life with them around. Frank agreed, even though he was hesitant. Later, Deborah came to Dexter and yelled at him for removing the security, worried that Dokes might come and hurt Dexter or even her. But Dexter reassured her, saying Dokes wouldn't do anything to him and on the other hand, Dokes was still in the cabin. Suddenly, he heard a phone ringing and discovered it was the phone of Dexter's mother's killer, which Dexter had forgotten there. Dokes tried to get it using his shoe but couldn't reach. At that moment, Dexter arrived at the cabin, so Dokes quickly threw his shirt over the phone to hide it so Dexter wouldn't find it. Dexter entered and started talking to Dokes, telling him he had spent the whole day thinking and finally decided he had to kill him. He took out his tools to start getting rid of Dokes. Dokes got very scared, but Dexter handed him a bottle of water to calm him down. Dokes drank it and then tried to convince Dexter to let him go, but Dexter didn't listen or care. Then the killer's phone rang. When Dexter heard the phone, he went to check it, found the phone, and saw a message from someone asking the killer to come pick up the drugs. Dexter was worried that this person might know the location of the cabin and come there, discovering what Dexter was doing. So Dexter decided to find another solution. Dokes passed out from the effect of the drug Dexter had put in the water earlier. But instead of killing Dokes after drugging him, Dexter put all his tools in Dokes' hands so his fingerprints would be on them. Then Dexter took those tools and threw them in the water, hoping the police would find them and think Dokes was the real killer. The next day, Dexter went to work and met Angel, who told him his daughter from his ex-wife was coming to visit him and he was looking for a place to take her out. Dexter suggested they go to the beach together. He is with Rita and her kids, so Angel agrees, and Dexter asks him not to mention Lila at all in front of Rita to avoid any problem. Angel agrees, and by the way, Lila goes to meet him, and he tells her that they're going to the beach and she can't come with them. Lila gets upset, but she doesn't say anything. After that, Dexter goes to see Dokes, and Dokes starts talking to him about Harry, his adoptive father, telling him that he knows dangerous information about his death. Dexter is surprised because he thought Harry died of heart disease, but Dokes tells him that's not true and refuses to say anything else unless he's let out of the cabin. Dexter refuses and leaves him. Then he goes to meet Officer Matthews, who was very close to Harry, and asks him about the reason for Harry's death. Matthews tells him the truth, which is that Harry killed himself by taking a large amount of pill. Dexter is shocked because he never imagined Harry could do that or commit suicide, and he starts to suspect that he himself is the reason for Harry's suicide. When Harry saw him killing, he was terrified, broke down and couldn't go on, so he decided to end his life. A little later, Dexter goes with Angel, Rita and the kids to the beach, and they really enjoy their time and have a change of atmosphere. Then Dexter leaves to go to Dokes, but before he arrives, he gets a new message from the same person who previously texted the phone of his mother's killer, saying that he's coming to the cabin to get the drugs. Dexter realizes that this person is a drug dealer who knows the location of the cabin because he used to get drugs from the man who killed Dexter's mother. Dexter decides to kill him since he's a drug dealer, a criminal, and definitely deserves to die. and also so he doesn't expose Dexter. After a while, we see Dexter go to the cabin and kill the drug dealer, telling Dokes that he's going to kill him and then hand both Dokes's and the dealer's bodies to the police, so the whole crime will fall on Dokes. Dokes gets scared and tries to convince Dexter not to do it, begging him to change his mind. But Dexter doesn't listen and starts killing the man in front of Dokes. Even though Dokes is a cop and is used to seeing such scenes, he can't handle it, turns away from the scene, and sits on the ground with his back to what's happening. After Dexter finishes, Dokes tells him he's crazy and to stay away from him. Dexter then remembers a moment from the past when Harry first saw him killing. This scene disgusted and terrified Harry, and he died shortly after. Now Dexter realizes he's the reason for Harry's death because Harry couldn't handle what he saw and decided to escape it all by committing suicide. Dexter is very sad because he loved Harry deeply and didn't know he was the reason for his death. At the same time at Lila's house, she's with Angel as usual, and asks him where Dexter and Rita are. He tells her that they're getting much closer than before, which makes her angry. She takes some pills and passes out from their effect. Angel hears her, runs to her, and finds her unconscious, so he calls an ambulance. We understand that Lila probably tried to kill herself because Dexter left her, which also confirms she's crazy, and we still don't know what she'll do next. Dexter returns still at the cabin with Dokes, and Dokes keeps trying to talk to him and convince him to turn himself in, saying everything can be fixed, so Dexter decides he must face things, and go immediately. Dexter is surprised, leaves Dokes in the cabin as he is, and goes to the hospital to see what's going on. When Dexter arrives at the hospital, he meets a doctor who tells him that Lila claims Angel gave her drugs and assaulted her, and that she's going to file an official case against him even though none of this happened. Dexter doubts her story, especially since he knows Angel very well and knows he wouldn't do something like that. So he decides to talk to Lila himself. There Lila tells him she set Angel up to get Dexter to come, and says she has two options. Either Dexter comes back to her, or she'll continue with the case against Angel and ruin his future. Dexter gets angry, tells her she's crazy, and that nothing in the world will make him go back to her. He tells her to stay away from him and all his friends, then leaves her without another word. He's confused and doesn't know how to help Angel, whose future is at risk. Dexter goes to work and finds a new man from Washington named Max Gee, who is from the feds and outranks Frank by a lot. He came specifically to handle the Dokes case, which makes Dexter nervous and feel he needs to find a solution quickly before Max gets involved. Then two officers come and arrest Angel after Lila filed an official complaint, carrying out her threat, which drives Dexter crazy because he feels responsible for everything happening to everyone around him. He decides he will find a solution soon, starting by getting rid of Dokes and Lila, and we'll see how he does all this later. Meanwhile, Dokes is trying with all his strength to open the cage he's locked in. He tries very hard until he finally manages to open it and escapes from the cabin quickly. But now Dokes finds that the road is very long and that it will take a lot of time to get anywhere, and Dexter might arrive before he makes it. So he decides to run toward the sea, hoping to find a boat to get him out. Indeed, he finds a boat with two people on it, asks for their help, and tells them he is a cop and that someone locked him in the cabin and he needs to get out immediately, because his life is in danger. But it turns out those two are drug dealers, and when they find out he's a cop they quickly beat him up, causing Dokes to lose consciousness. The dealers take him with them and leave. After a while, Dexter returns to the cabin and finds that Dokes has disappeared, but before he can do anything, he sees the two men returning with Dokes. They realize that there might be drugs in the cabin and came back to look for them. After that, they try to finish off Dokes, but their dreams won't come true because Dexter attacks them quickly, knocks them both out, and frees Dokes. But the unfortunate Dokes doesn't even get a chance to be happy, as Dexter immediately and without discussion puts him back in the cage. Dexter then sits with him and talks to him for a long time. In the end, Dexter tells Dokes that he's decided to turn himself in and get rid of all this, but he'll do it the day after tomorrow because there are things he needs to finish first. Dokes agrees and tells him he'll wait for him to keep his promise. After that, Dexter calls Deborah and tells her he needs to meet her very early at the station because there's something very important he needs to tell her. She's surprised but agrees anyway, even though she doesn't understand anything. Meanwhile, Deborah goes to sit with Masuka and Angel at the casino. We find out that Angel still hasn't been sentenced in the Lila case, but his case is ongoing. Deborah sympathizes a lot with him and goes to Frank, asking him to look for Lila, find out more about her, and why she did what she did to Angel. Frank investigates and discovers that Lila has changed her name, is living in the country illegally, and her passport expired a long time ago. Deborah is happy because she finally has a way to keep Lila away from Angel forever, or at least a way to pressure Lila to drop the case. At the same time, Dexter goes to Lila and tells her that he will disappear very soon and she won't see him again, so there's no point in what she's doing with Angel. He asks her to drop the case and leave. Then he goes back to the station and meets Deborah, giving her some papers to sign, telling her that these papers make all his possessions hers, in case he dies or goes to prison. Deborah is of course surprised, and asks him why he's doing this, but Dexter doesn't answer. Of course we understand that Dexter is doing this because he's planning to turn himself in, as he told Dokes. After that Dexter goes to Rita and her kids, takes them and goes to the marina. There they get on a boat and spend some nice time at sea as a kind of farewell to Rita and the children, since he plans to go to prison and doesn't want to leave them without saying goodbye. Meanwhile Lila is tracking the addresses on the tracking device to understand exactly what Dexter is doing, and this leads her to the cabin where Dokes is. Before going anywhere, Lila arrives home and Deborah comes to her, telling her to stay away from Dexter and Angel, and that if she stays in the city until tomorrow, she'll report her to immigration and they'll arrest her with no discussion, since she's living in the city illegally, and knows it well. Lila stays silent and agrees with Deborah, who leaves without another word. After that, Lila checks the tracking device records, and finds the place Dexter was going to, the cabin where Dokes is. She heads there and Dokes hears someone outside, so he starts screaming and asking for help. At this point Lila realizes immediately that Dexter has someone captive here, but she doesn't go in and stops to think about what to do first. Meanwhile we see Dexter having dinner with Deborah for the last time, feeling that tomorrow he'll confess and start anew. But suddenly, Deborah gets a call that the police have found Dokes' weapons with his fingerprints on them, meaning Dokes is the killer. Dexter stands in disbelief, realizing that his plan is working as he wanted, and that there's no need for him to turn himself in. He changes his mind and decides to continue with his plan to frame Dokes for everything, making Dokes look guilty in everyone's eyes instead of Dexter, who would remain free. But in the middle of all this, Deborah gets a call from Frank that they found one of Dokes' cars and are going to inspect it. She leaves Dexter and rushes off. Dexter on his side decides to quickly go to the cabin and deal with things before the police arrive, because if anyone sees Dokes locked up, they'll know someone locked him up to frame him, and that could destroy Dexter completely. At that exact moment, Lila had already decided to enter the cabin. As soon as Lila walked in, she found Dokes in front of her all of a sudden. Of course she had no idea who he was, didn't know he was a cop, and even Dokes himself didn't know she had any connection to Dexter at all. He tells her his name is Dokes, that he's a cop, and that Dexter is the one who locked him up in there and that he wants to kill him because he exposed all his secrets. Dokes asks Lila to help him and set him free. Lila then asks him why Dexter would do all this, and Dokes tells her that he discovered Dexter is the Bay Harbor butcher, and Dexter wants to keep it all hidden from the police. That's why he locked him up and decided to get rid of him. At that moment, Lila thinks about it and decides not to help Dokes, feeling she can't let Dexter get caught or exposed. She decides to do something even crazier. She opens the gas canister in the cabin, sets the place on fire, and leaves Dokes inside as the cabin burns. Lila walks out, having done what she did, showing she really is insane, maybe even more of a killer than Dexter himself. Afterwards, Dexter arrives, originally planning to kill Dokes himself so he wouldn't be exposed. But now, Dexter finds the cabin burned down and of course is happy. He convinces himself the fire happened on its own, that no one was behind it, and since Dokes is dead, everything is fine. But the problem is, there's still no body. They keep searching until they finally find it in the lake in front of the cabin, because the explosion was so strong it threw the body all the way there. With confirmation of Dokes' death, Dexter decides to live his life again as if everything is over. He goes to Rita, makes up with her, and they get back together, maybe even better than before. Then Dexter goes to work as usual with Masuka, examining the items collected from the cabin where Dokes died. Among those things, Dexter finds his GPS device, which Lila forgot there. By chance, Dexter remembers he had left that device in his car, so with a bit of thinking, he realizes Lila was the one who found Dokes' location and killed him. He concludes that Lila also knows his secret, and is a killer, so Dexter decides he must get rid of her before she exposes him. Dexter goes to meet her at a place she chose, and she tells him she's not afraid of him, that she can meet him here just fine. Lila then tells him she knows the truth about him, that he's a killer, and that she helped him by killing Dokes. She doesn't see it as wrong. On the contrary, she's happy she helped him with such a big problem. Then Lila asks Dexter to run away with her, and in return she won't expose him. Dexter realizes she's not normal, and this isn't the first time she's killed. Dexter pretends he loves her and they agree to run away together the next day. But Dexter is only doing this to prepare a way to get rid of Lila for good. The next day, Dexter gets ready with all his killing tools and sedatives, and goes to Lila's apartment. But the unpleasant surprise is that he doesn't find her. While Dexter searches for her in the house, he realizes Lila has left the city and won't harm anyone. He tells Deborah he came for the same reason. They wait for Lila to return so they can force her to leave the city. After a while, Lila arrives. When she gets there, Deborah talks to her and asks her to leave and never come back. Deborah also tells her at that moment that she and Dexter came specifically to tell her that. Lila is surprised, and even more surprised when she sees the bag and realizes Dexter brought his tools to kill her. So Lila takes the bag and leaves. Of course, Dexter can't say anything, because if he admits it's his bag, Deborah would discover everything and things would blow up, which is exactly what he doesn't want, so he keeps quiet. After that, Lila opens the bag and finds sedatives and weapons, so she realizes he really intended to kill her as she suspected. She goes crazy and decides to take revenge on Dexter in the hardest way. So what does she do? Simply, Lila goes to Rita's house, where the babysitter is with Cody and Astor, but Rita isn't there because she's at work. The important thing is, Lila drugs the babysitter, takes the kids, and leaves. At the same time, Dexter goes to the station because Matthews called him. When Matthews sees him, he tells him that Lila called and said she knows who the Bay Harbor butcher is, and will turn him in if Dexter doesn't help her. Dexter realizes Lila did all this to distract him from something she's doing. But what is? Dexter thinks for a bit, and realizes she must have gone for Rita's kids. Dexter and Rita rush to Rita's house, and find the babysitter just waking up from being drugged, and she tells them someone drugged her, and took the kids. When they don't find the kids, they're sure crazy Lila kidnapped. They go to Lila's place, and find the kids sitting there watching TV. Nothing happened to them, as Lila was waiting for Dexter. Suddenly, Lila appears and tells him she loved him and will miss him, then sets the house on fire and runs away. Dexter breaks the window, gets the kids out, but can't get out the same way because it's too small, so he goes to the door, breaks it, and escapes through the fire. At that moment, Deborah arrives, coming to check on him after Rita told her. When she finds Dexter safe, she calls the ambulance, and they treat his burns and small injuries. Deborah tells Dexter she wants to find Lila, but Dexter tells her not to bother, because Lila has surely fled the country after what she did. And indeed, a few days later, Lila arrives in France, intending to start a new life there. But as soon as she enters the house, she's surprised to find Dexter waiting for her. He drugs her and kills her with a knife, just as he likes to do, and that's the end of Lila, who was a real danger to him. Dexter returns to America free. He attends Dokes's funeral, which no one attends except Maria, his family and Dexter, because of course, everyone thinks Dokes was the Bay Harbor butcher, so no one wanted to attend the funeral of a serial killer, which upsets Dexter a lot, because for once he feels he wronged Dokes. But as usual, he quickly forgets all that, and then buys a new box to them. If you liked today's video, don't forget